WRC 23 is finally here. A hooray from all rally fans. And since the most exciting time of the rally game year is upon us, we want to make sure that you are not left in the dust when it comes to your settings on gamepad. Everything about Deadzones, linearity, and button layout is coming up now when we give you a quick overview on the best controller settings for WRC 23. And with that, welcome back to OverTake. The WRC games have a lot of history with gamepad. Historically, players on handheld devices have achieved amazing lap times with the right state of settings. Now that Codemasters have taken over the ship, some things did change in terms of the overall feeling. So how does that reflect on the gamepad settings? The first step you gotta take is understanding what the setting terms really mean. To see all the settings, we therefore must first move into the controls menu, select our device, and look at the bindings first. Here we can see dead zone and saturation immediately. A dead zone is a non-responsive area around the center of a stick, for example. Inputs in that area will not lead to response from the game. The more of a value you put on here, the later the game will respond to what you are doing. The application here is that sudden movements or inputs can lead to unwanted shifts in momentum in game. A heavy input on the throttle can theoretically cause a spin, and if you are prone to that, adjusting the dead zone may be right for you. As being precise with the wheel is much easier usually, the dead zone finds more application in controller-based gameplay. You, on the other hand, may find more application in the OverTake video space. So to make sure you're always on the line when new content drops, hitting the like button, subscribing, and tapping on that bell is the best way to do so. But let's see how you can adjust the pad now. In WRC 23, you can set a dead zone for steering, for the brake, the throttle, and the handbrake. I would advise you to keep a range from 10 to 20 on the dead zone for the steering first of all. The last thing you want is to have snappy oversteer all the time, and most of us are not built to be surgically perfect when it comes to controllers. So a little bit of leeway here isn't too bad, and even on 20%, the car will turn plenty early. I would also add 5 to 10% on the throttle, just so you can avoid spinning at slower speed corners after trying to gear up again. Even though the crazy snap oversteer from past years has been somewhat fixed in WRC 23 a bit, some connection to reality has to be kept. Putting a bit up here has made a real difference for me. The brake and handbrake seem fine without any adjustments here, so just leave it at 0. Let's quickly brush over the saturation, as that should pretty much be 100% everywhere. This setting lets you adjust if you want to have the full range of an input available. I don't see a world in which I would want less saturated inputs, so I left it at max and wasn't missing it anywhere. If we now move into the advanced menu, two options appear: steering sensitivity and steering linearity. The first is pretty self-explanatory. Steering sensitivity is telling you how much the wheel responds to your inputs on joystick. A lower value here will mean you will have to flick your stick a bit more in order to see any results, and vice versa. As much as I want to prevent snappy and hyper-responsive cornering in WRC 23, I did find a value between 55 and 65 to fit the best. With the added dead zone, it does make the car responsive but not uncontrollable. While more control is great for lower speed corners, in high speed shuffles, you will want to be more consistent. Linearity is a bit tougher to grasp. It is similar to sensitivity, but not the same. The best way I had it described to me was that the linearity tells you how much the wheel in-game turns in comparison to your input on controller. If you add a value to the linearity, it will mean there is sort of a delay between input and steering wheel, which does, however, feel more like a nice resistance. While it's not very natural to want a delay here, it makes sense as we go back to the precision part. Going with 0 linearity will take you a lot of patience to not completely melt down at every corner. For most, something like a 3 or 4 here is reasonable. With all those settings, you should be able to run pretty much every rally smoothly, to a degree. If you want to do a whole run on Chile, for example, you may as well look like this afterwards. Adding a pinch of traction control could help to smoothen the rest of the way as well. But if you want to see a comprehensive guide on assists in WRC 23, write a comment down below. Let's quickly glance over the rest of the settings. Vibration and force feedback is really nice this year. Too nice at some points. While I would definitely advise you to leave them turned on, I like my hand massages to be at qualified establishments. So I have toned down everything by 20%. It takes away some of the fun, but in my eyes is less distracting and more consistent for your driving. At most, tire slip can be left at 100 or even more, as that can truly give you more of a feeling over the car. In terms of bindings, I find the standard button layout to be sufficient. However, I personally find the gear shifts to be better fitted on the RB and LB button for Xbox pads and L1 and R1 for PlayStation controllers. The reason for that is that the handbrake should always be on the action buttons. If you leave upshift, downshift on those as well, you will run into some weird hand positions during your rally adventures, which is suboptimal. And if you want to go on a holistic rally adventure, looking at our review right here may be the way to go. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, cheerio.